can the media please refrain from coming in on top of Ruairí Ó Brádaigh?
I accord Crahamishala of the Gokenya. I'll shake hands with everyone and at every time, not just in front of the media. Now, Tom Shatterston Corley Cantorus come on, go Jean in I rune Kid Shaskado. Agus Ian Mujarav a rune Kid Octo Kahar a Corrige agus Takiok Ienalish. Fellow delegates, I have to say in the beginning, and I said this in Strokestown when we had our Corley Limister meeting on the 14th of September, there's a total contradiction in this discussion. In fact, the discussion is totally out of order if this constitution of Sinn Féin means anything. Because it says there that no person who approves or supports candidates going into Leinster House, Stormont or Westminster shall be admitted to membership or allowed to retain membership. And yet, on this floor, we have plenty of resolutions proposing to go into Leinster House, and indeed some of them proposing to go into Westminster and Stormont as well, because they want abstention ended altogether. The Constitution has and is being flouted and has not been made effective. The first step was to remove that article and come back, have a year's discussion, and come back the following year and make the necessary changes. Instead, it's all telescoped, and I would submit that it's totally out of order. Number two, the resolution that proposes, when strong enough, a 32 county constituent assembly to be joined there by other revolutionary forces, is a reaffirmation of the fundamental principles of our Constitution, A and B. And it says it here, and this is a document that I take seriously, because I've worked for it for many, many, many years, and many, many Ardèche and in between. And it says, first, the allegiance of Irish men and Irish women is due to the sovereign Irish Republic proclaimed in 1916. It doesn't say that we go to Leinster House or Stormont or Westminster. The fundamental principle. There are those who say there are no principles, only to get there. That everything's a tactic. But standing on this document, it says it's a fundamental principle. And secondly, that the sovereignty and unity of the Republic are inalienable and non-judicable. In other words, they can't be given away and are not a matter for reconsideration. They are absolutes. We were told last night that we can agree to disagree on fundamentals. How in the name of heavens can we do that? If there are fundamentals there, we either accept them as in the Constitution, or we go another road and we disagree with them. Now, 162 is clearly a departure from those two basic principles enshrined in our Constitution, and there's no proposal on the floor of the Ardèche to do away with them. How can those two principles stand and a proposal to go into Leinster House or any of these other places stand at the same time? They will not fit in the one house. Further, the resolution from Roscommon proposes to reassemble the Constituent Assembly and All-Ireland Parliament. And I want to ask the Ardèche this. Where are our revolutionary socialists? How do they expect to build a democratic socialist republic out of Leinster House? How can serious social change come out of Leinster House? How can fundamental change in property relations come out of Leinster House? No way can it do that. What we are asked to do today is to tip the scales that little bit in favour of parliamentary, constitutional and reformist action. What about Stormont and Westminster? If you raise that, you'll be told they're not at issue. But naturally people want to know what's down the road. Are they ruled out? Or are they also for consideration in due course? People want to know, and they want to know now, and they have not been told. A few years ago, if you mentioned about Leinster House, you were told you were raising bogeymen. Did you want to make accusations? Did you want to make charges? What were you talking about? And then suddenly it all collapses on us. The courts have been mentioned. The courts were always a tactic, in capital charges, in test cases, and when permitted by the military authority of this movement to do so. They were never a principle. With regard to councils, Sinn Féin has always been in the councils, and that is as near to the system, to the enemy system, that we dare to go. Sitting in Leinster House is not a revolutionary activity. Once you go in there, once you sign the roll of the House and accept the institutions of the state, once you accept the Ceann Comhairle's rulings, you'll not be able to do it according to your rules. You'll have to go according to their rules, and they can stand up and gang up on you and put you outside on the street and keep you outside on the street. John A. Murphy was quoted here today. I'd like to quote Dick Walsh, the political correspondent of the Irish Times last Thursday. He says about us, the party is struggling with its own contradictions. If its delegates this weekend give adequate support to their candidates, that their candidates should take their seats in the Dáil, he calls it, they will, whether they say so or not, be recognising the legitimacy of their actors. And as a direct and inescapable consequence of that, the illegitimacy of any force other than the army, the Free State Army, claiming to wage war on behalf of the Irish people. I will not accept the Free State Army. The media, the Irish Times on the 30th of August said, wherever it got its information, in a leading article, there's a considerable body of support within the provisionals, as they called us, for entering Parliament, and then went on to say it is the only road forward. The Irish press, in an editorial on the 20th of October, said, politicians may object to sitting down with these terrible people, but after all, isn't it a small price to pay to enmesh them in the constitutional system? They are very clear as to what's happening. The destabilisation, we are told, of the state will result, and the movement will be strengthened. Always has it been otherwise. Every time has it been otherwise. The movement suffered and the state was strengthened. 4 times since 1922 it happened. All ended in failure, and ended ultimately in the degradation and shame of collaborating with the British, of handing our political prisoners over to them, and of running counter to what they originally set out to do. Accordia, I put it to you this way. We have not been wrong for 65 years. We have not been wrong for all those 70 years. We have been right, and we should continue to be right. I ask you to reject 162 and to accept 184. And in God's name, don't let it come about that tomorrow, the next day and the day after, that Haughey, Fitzgerald, Spring, and those in London and Belfast who oppose us so much can come out and say, it took 65 years, but we have them at last. And those in Leinster House, who have done everything, the firing squads, the prison cells, the internment camps, the hunger strikes, the lot, and weren't able to break this movement, that they can come and say, at last we have them towing the line. It took us 65 years, but they've come in from the cold, they come in from the wilderness, and we have them now. Never, that's what I say to you, never